We are here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation. Bring news just for you. It's Tuesday, August 13th here in Seoul. I'm Song Yujin, and this is News Generation. Today, we're joined by Kwon Ji-hyun.
Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday, and Yoon Se-young.
Good morning.
Good morning. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. Now, like always, we're going to start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending online. The Perseid meteor shower, regarded as one of the most stunning meteor showers of the year, was visible late last night into the early morning hours of today here in Korea. The shower occurs during the warm summer night and usually peaks in mid-August. The meteor shower happens when the Earth orbits through the debris of the Swift-Tuttle comet. As pieces of debris enter Earth's atmosphere, they burn up due to friction, creating streaks of light across the sky. Moving on, South Korea's Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism started investigating the Badminton Korea Association on Monday following recent criticism by Olympic gold medalist An Se-young over the association's poor management. The investigation will focus on fairness in national team selection, efficiency in training and competition support, restrictions on international competition participation, and the fairness of the athlete's salary structure. The ministry will listen to the association and national team officials and will conduct on-site investigations and expert consultations. Staying in Korea, there are growing concerns about a resurgence of COVID-19. The latest data from the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency showed that hospitalizations due to the virus in the first week of August surged nearly six-fold compared to the second week of July. The agency believes the actual number of cases could be even higher, considering those who did not seek hospital care. Now, experts point to several factors contributing to this rise, including an increase in indoor activities due to the hot weather, reduced mask wearing, and poor ventilation from air conditioning. Additionally, the emergence of a new variant, KP3, has coincided with a typical 5 to 6 month cycle of COVID-19 waves. So I want to ask our panelists, have you also noticed a surge in COVID-19 around those around you? And what kind of preventive measures are you taking to prevent catching the virus?
Well, actually, I've been hearing a lot of people getting infected with COVID these days. And in fact, some pharmacies are running low on self-test kits and making it hard to get them. And since my kids are still young, the situation is very concerning for me. So I'm trying to wear face masks again whenever I go to crowded places, although it's too hot these days. But safety and health come first. So I try to stick to the basics like wearing a mask or washing my hands frequently or taking vitamins regularly.
Right, basics are always the important steps. Now, what about you, Chiu?
Well, I have observed a growing number of people around me contracting COVID-19 recently.
Even here at Arirang, right?
I know. Also in radio, which has certainly given me cause for concern. So in order to protect myself, I make sure to wear a mask in crowded places like Seoul and maintain social distance whenever possible. I also make it a point to wash my hands regularly and avoid touching my face. And I try to keep my home well ventilated to reduce the risk of airborne transmission. And I've even resumed the habit of carrying a mini hand sanitizer in my bag like I did back in the days.
So very useful advice and tips from our panelists. So I hope you guys also take these steps to prevent yourself from catching COVID again. And that was our news feed for this Tuesday. So we're now going to move on to our main discussion of the day. Now, many of us try our luck with scratch cards or lottery games, hoping to win a little extra cash or even hit the jackpot. But here in Korea, your prize could be a brand new home. Take a look at the screen to find out more.
Korea is often called the Republic of Apartments, with around 6 out of 10 people living in apartments. The country has a one-of-a-kind housing subscription system similar to a lottery. Those with housing subscription bank accounts can apply to buy a new apartment before construction is completed. When they are chosen, they pay some money upfront with the remainder to be paid within a certain period to finalize the contract. Recently, nearly 3 million people applied for a single apartment in a complex in Hwasong City, Gyeonggi-do Province. Another complex in Seojugo District had a competition ratio reaching 527 to 1. Why are so many people eager to live in an apartment in Korea?
Right, so we're going to start by taking a look into this unique apartment or housing subscription system here in Korea. So I want to ask our panelists, have you also participated in this subscription system, or if you've not, have you seen people around you taking part in this lottery-like system?
Well, I have indeed applied for one of those Lotto apartments in Seoul, but fortunately I didn't get selected. Well, the whole process was pretty intense, and it felt like everyone was trying their luck on this.
Right.
Seeing the odds, I wasn't too surprised when I didn't win. And even though I already own a very small, inexpensive apartment, the thought of securing a new one at a lower price in Seoul was quite tempting, especially given how expensive the market has become these days. It's quite remarkable how much competition there is for these new places, but I guess it just shows how strong the demand is for new housing here. Well, even though I didn't get it this time, I'm considering trying again in the future, because my social network feed keeps showing me new posts about, applying for housing subscriptions in Seoul.
Right, so Juyeon has actually participated in this apartment subscription system. Now, what about you, Seong?
Well, I moved into my new apartment just over 6 months ago, so I didn't participate in this round of housing subscription system. But wow, it almost seems like I was the only one who wasn't applying for this apartment lottery.
Well, I didn't apply for either, so there's two of us at least.
Eugene and I. So, for example, in places like Dongtan, where a lot of young couples or families with young children live, the excitement was off the charts, and especially the new L apartment in Dongtan area had relatively easy application requirements, which made the competition even more fierce. And among the people I know, 3 families with children applied, and there's a reason why it was called the National Lottery Day. Honestly, it was wild.
Right, and talking about that specific apartment unit in Hwaseong City that Seong just mentioned, it was a single apartment unit of a complex in Hwaseong City, Gyeonggi-do Province. Once again, it saw nearly 3 million applicants, which is roughly around 6% of Korea's national population. So you can see how fierce the competition was. And when the actual winner was announced earlier this month, online communities were buzzing, eager to find out who that lucky winner was. So I want to ask you, once again, what do you think is fueling this intense competition?
Well, I was right on the money with what I felt, because experts are also saying that a huge number of young people jumped into this latest housing subscription project, but there's a bit of a bittersweet twist to it, because the reason behind this rush is quite depressing if you think about it. Young people these days are feeling intense pressure from the surging real estate prices. In just a few years, the apartment prices in Seoul have soared to unbelievable levels. So young folks have come to this conclusion: winning the housing lottery is the only hope. So that's why this frenzy around a housing subscription system feels a bit sad when you think about it.
Right, because especially the younger generation feels that housing subscription system is kind of like, as you mentioned, the only way to afford a house, especially in Seoul, which has one of the most expensive housing markets in the country. Now, because this housing subscription system, you can buy the house at a much lower price when compared to the actual prices they are sold. So this is probably one of the reasons why our generation is especially into applying for these housing subscription systems. Now, what could be some other reasons, Juyeon?
Well, there are several reasons why apartment prices in Seoul have skyrocketed. But one big factor is that the supply is limited while demand is quite high. Recently, the MZ generation has shown a strong preference for new apartments, especially those close to their workplaces, which is driving prices up even more. In fact, the newer the apartment, the higher the price increase. If you look at the screen, over the past year, apartment prices in South Korea have shown a clear trend based on the age of the buildings. So new apartments less than 5 years old saw the highest price increase of 3.25%, and apartments aged 10 to 15 years experienced a 1.96% rise, while those over 20 years old had the smallest increase at just 0.42%. So this data from the Korea Real Estate Board highlights the strong demand for newer properties in the current market.
Right. So the stat you just showed how the prices of newly built apartments are going up, while that of relatively old apartments, they're not seeing that much of a price increase. Now, these apartments that we've just mentioned earlier through the housing subscription system are all newly built. And as you guys both mentioned, it's the younger generation that seems most interested in the system. I think that this kind of highlights a shift in priorities when compared to our parents' generation, because our generation seems to value the newness of a home more than the neighborhood it's in, because our parents' generation, they typically placed a higher value on location, often seeking out neighborhoods with the reputation for being luxurious, safe, or ideal for raising children. So I want to ask you, Gia, what do you think has caused this shift in priorities when we're looking for a house?
Well, in fact, the MZ generation grew up in a time of abundance. So their expectations for housing are relatively high, are naturally high. And unlike the older generation who were satisfied with just having hot water, decent heating, the under system in Korea, the MZ generation demands more than that. Their emphasis on living in the moment also plays a role. So this refers to the young generation's focus on enjoying life in the present rather than prioritizing long-term planning or future benefits. Well, this mindset often associated with philosophies like YOLO, you only live once, or Carpe Diem. The Carpe Diem, which means the seize the day, make the most of the present moment, leads them to prefer immediate pleasure, convenience, and satisfaction.
Which can be provided by fresh, newly built apartments, right?
Indeed.
Right. Now, what could be some other reasons why our generation is so into these newly built homes?
Well, another factor driving this trend is the skyrocketing construction costs, which have significantly increased the redevelopment fees for older apartments. So people no longer see the need to pay these high fees and wait around for an old apartment to be redeveloped.
Right.
And in this context, moving into a newly built apartment seems like a pretty rational choice for young people. And that's actually one of the reasons why my family decided to move into a new apartment. And plus, with the rise of so-called the fourth generation apartments, the level of amenities within these complexes has advanced dramatically.
Right.
Here, I'm talking about indoor golf practice ranges, teams, swimming pools, spa, keys cafes, bowling alley, library, movie theaters, and even cafeterias that serve breakfast, and the list just goes on. So basically, you can enjoy all different kinds of leisure activities without leaving your home. And for parents like my husband and I, who are raising young children, this convenience is just unbeatable. So on top of that, many of these new apartments come with daycare centers or elementary schools as well. My second kid is attending one of these daycare centers, and I'm planning to send my first child to the elementary school within my apartment complex when they graduate from kindergarten. So it's very attractive for young parents.
Wow, basically you can do everything when you're living in a newly built
town.
Right, it's actually like a new town. You can send your kids to daycare center or even a school. You can shop, you can work out, everything. Almost everything seems to be possible if you're living in a newly built apartment in Korea. Now, this brings us to a broader discussion. Why have apartments become the dominant housing choice in Korea? Because this type of housing seems to continuously develop, and we're seeing new apartments being continuously built.
That's right. Well, in many countries, houses are the standard choice for living. But in Korea, it's totally different. Rapid development concentrated around Seoul on limited land has made apartments the most common form of housing. So in South Korea, owning an apartment is highly valued for several reasons. First of all, real estate is considered a stable and profitable investment, providing financial stability for the family. And secondly, apartments offer a sense of personal stability and status, reflecting one's success and social standing. I don't want to admit, but that's the true reality. Well, and lastly, there is a strong cultural emphasis on home ownership
Right.
as a key life milestone.
Right. Do you also agree with this social societal atmosphere, Seo?
Yeah, I totally agree with what Jian just said. And personally, it's not my favorite aspect of a societal trends or history, but it's something I have to acknowledge. In Korea, an apartment is more than just a place to live. It carries much deeper significance. And since the 1970s, when a large-scale real estate development kicked off, those who bought apartments saw their value skyrocket, accumulating significant wealth in the process. And from that point on, apartments became both home and investment vehicles, like Chuan said. And now, of course, this has brought about a lot of different social issues as well. But the fact is, we are still living in that reality today.
Right, because once again, around 60% of South Korea's population is known to live in apartments, so they've definitely become the dominant housing type here in the country. Now, to find out what's like in other parts of the world, we also asked our viewers about the housing trends in their countries. That is, whether apartments are also the dominant type of housing where they live. And here's what 3 of them said. So if we look at the comments, Jiawei3518 says, in New Zealand, everyone likes different types of accommodation depending on their circumstances. City folks may like rural areas because the houses have more development potential and good air quality, whereas some may desire being in large cities where there are more people, so apartments would be their ideal choice so they can easily socialize with different people. Leonteo93 says, yes, apartment living is the preferred choice for most Singaporeans. Over 80% of Singapore's resident population lives in public housing known as HDB flats. For the desired type of apartment here, private residential apartments known as condominiums with amenities like swimming pools, gyms, and security systems are popular. Itagraph says, in the US, most people have the goal of owning a single-family detached home. However, due to many different factors, that has become harder in many parts of the country. In the US, the average apartment building is thought of as a place to live for a short period of time, like 1 to 5 years, while you save for a home or condo or study to get a job that will pay well enough to rent or own a house. So we took a look at the different types of housing cultures in other parts of the world, but now we're going to focus more once again on Korea's unique apartment culture by inviting a Korean Gen Z to our talks right after this break. So today we're joined by Lee Dayeon, a Korean Gen Z, and Dayeon has experience living in an apartment both in Korea and the United States. Welcome, Dayeon, to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me today.
Good morning. So our first question for you is, what kind of housing do you live in right now, and have you lived in different types of housing before?
So right now I'm living in a 2-bedroom and 2-bathroom apartment with my roommate in Merced, California in the US. Before this, I live in the school domes, which actually had a pretty similar layout to my current apartment. Back when I live in Korea, I stay in my parents' apartment.
Dayeon, so compared to other types of housing, what do you see as the benefits and drawbacks of living in an apartment?
So another common option in the US is sharing a house. I haven't experienced that myself, but from what I've heard, houses typically have more bedrooms, like 3 or 4, and are usually rented out by a landlord. So when I think about it, the biggest advantage of living in an apartment is definitely having my own bathroom. In houses, there are usually more bedrooms than bathrooms, so most people have to share unless they pay extra for a master bedroom with an in-suite bathroom. So, and then living in an apartment is also pretty convenient because the management of it handles things like trash removal and repairs. Plus, there's a bit more freedom compared to living in a house where you might have a landlord in living on site. But of course, there are also some drawbacks. The biggest one is the cost. Apartments in the US can be really expensive, especially in California. Even though I'm in one of the more affordable areas in California, we still pay around $1,650 a month for rent, and that's not even counting utilities like trash, gas, water, internet, insurance, and electricity, which can add up especially in the summer and winter season. So yeah, and I end up paying more than $1,000 per a month just for my share of the rent. On the other hand, living in a house can be cheaper since more people share the expenses.
All right, Taeyeon, so based on your experience, what stands out to you as unique or special about apartments in Korea?
When I first thought about living in an apartment in the US, I expected to be a compact complex with multiple floors like in Korea. But here, apartments usually have a maximum of 2 floors and the buildings are often pretty spread out. And we have to use physical keys instead of a digital keypad. Even now, I'm still not used to carrying the keys all the time. And another thing that's different to the application process. So getting an apartment in the US is kind of an audition. So you have to submit an application with a non-refundable fees of around $40 to $50, which covers a credit check, rental history, and proof of annual income. So once your application is approved, you can secure the apartment. But it's a tricky process, and sometimes it just comes down to luck. One thing I really miss about apartment in Korea is the flooring. Since there is no ondol here, so floors are usually carpeted, which makes them harder to keep clean. Plus, I don't feel comfortable lying on the floor because it always feels like there's dirt and sand left behind other people.
All right, Taeyeon, thank you so much for your insights today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that was our discussion and introduction of Korea's unique apartment culture. We hope that our discussion today helped you understand more about Korea's unique apartment culture. And if you also want to share your housing culture or accommodation culture, please leave a comment below on NewsGen's episode today. And that's all the time we have for today, but we'll be back tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Korean time. Special thanks today to Kwon Ji-hyun
Thank you for having me.
and Yoon Se-young.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. We are News Generation.